Hey.
Good, y'all.
We live, baby.
Good, we love. Welcome to the Three of Cups. Welcome to the Three of Cups. Welcome to the Three of Cups. You already know. You already know. Listen, me and Destiny got headaches. Let's be straight with you. We've got a headache, and Jazz is sleepy. So just forgive our energy. Maybe it's our shadows just being like, we don't want to really fucking do this today. We're tired, but we're here. We're here. And we're here to discuss the shadow. It's really to kind of really. I mean, we're not prepared. We're not prepared today, and I don't really know what direction we're going to go in with the shadow. But all three of us are gonna kind of explain to you like our perspectives of the shadow, and yeah. Destiny got a headache.
We'll be all right, though. We are right.
So yeah, so we're going to start it off by saying, I mean, I've got notes, you guys. I have got some notes. Yesterday, when I was
At least you prepared, Mama. At least you prepared.
I was really high yesterday, like high. You know that high, you know, and the fingers in your hand, you're like, I was high like that. And then they got me up and got me scribbling. And I was like, all right, boom. So they were like, okay, so 2021 was a theme, I think, was the Dark Night of the Soul, was an entire theme for the entire year. I don't think many of us had a lot of respite coming out of the Dark Night of the Soul. And when we talk about the Dark Night of the Soul, I feel like this is where the shadow is shedding. Right, so the shadow is shedding things that no longer serve it, things that are holding it back. And I think that this year, this was a theme for all of us. And I just want to make a quick reference to a movie because you know I love it. You know I love a movie reference. So I'm going to talk about Star Wars. Do you remember, Destiny, when we first started talking around last year, and I was obsessed with watching Star Wars, and they gave me two things. I saw something online in regards to Darth Vader. So obviously Darth Vader is from the dark side, and in the first movies that came out, we just saw Darth Vader. But in the years to come, we learned that Darth Vader was once Anakin. And first of all, Dar in Egyptian something or other means knowledge. So, and dark, I used to say Darth Vader when I was a kid. And dark, I heard you, Jazz, talking about dark referring to love. So I want you to expand on that in a moment. But let's talk about Anakin. Let's talk about little Darth Vader. How did he become Darth Vader? And what I saw was that Anakin was very independent to begin with. Anakin was very sure of himself to begin with. And when he was discovered by the Jedi wanted to control him. So there in itself showed that the Jedi, which is meant to be the light, has its own level of dark shadow because it wanted to control a soul that was already very who and what he was. And he knew how to survive. He loved as well. The reason why he became Darth Vader was because he wasn't listened to. He believed that he could expand and be at the level of the Jedi, but the Jedi kept him down. And it wasn't until the Sith, which are the dark side, came to him and said, look, you can be everything and anything you want to be if you come over here with us. And one of the things that Anakin wanted to do was save his wife from dying at childbirth, dying when she was having Luke and Leia. So he decided that the Jedi didn't want to save him, but the Jedi had explained to him, Yoda had explained to him that in order to be at peace, you have to detach from everything you're afraid to lose. So Anakin being Anakin, he decided that he wanted to go over to the dark side because he wanted to try and save his wife and his unborn children. That was the whole reason how he ended up in the dark side. But what showed in the movies that although he was described as a tyrant and he did all of these things to suppress people, what he actually was still light because he saved his son when the Sith tried to kill him. He saved Luke Skywalker when the Sith tried to murder him. So it just showed that no matter how dark he seemed, he still had light. And I want to jump over to Destiny because Destiny, you were showing us your homemade tarot cards with the yin and the yang sign, and you was explaining that. So I just want to throw it over to you.
So before I go ahead and kind of talk about that, I want to share with you guys my perspective on and a little bit about my relationship with my personal shadow. So I feel like the best way to get people to connect with their shadow is to relate it to your own inner shadow work. So for myself, I've been doing the inner shadow work for a couple of years, and at the beginning stages, it was really about accountability and reclaiming my inner shadow. So your inner shadow, think of it almost like that orphaned energy, that abandoned energy, that energy that's out way too young, that is vulnerable. And essentially, I realized that me not claiming my own shadow essentially got darker energies to be able to use my shadow to do its own bidding. So that would be me looking at myself and going, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? There was no conscious awareness, control, or understanding of my shadow. If anything, I tried to reject my shadow. And it's not just the lower vibrational qualities of me, like the aspects of my personality I want to change and evolve, but my wounding, my pain, things I went through. So the shadow is anything that we don't acknowledge, that's in the dark, that's dormant. So these could be talents, skills, and abilities that were never validated, that are dormant inside you. But it could also be this pain and wounding, and then all of the dark energy that essentially perpetuates how we let that dark energy live out. So I hope I'm not losing you, but essentially, the way I view the relationship, because we did the higher self, and now we're talking about the shadow, but I look at the shadow as one of 5 parts of the soul. So the way I break it down here, the way I've seen it, is essentially you've got the inner child, the inner masculine, and the inner feminine, and they both essentially are wedged between the higher self and the lower self. Now, once you reclaim your shadow, meaning you claim your darker parts, your shadow shouldn't belong to the darkness. Essentially, this is you claiming your dark energy. It doesn't play you out of your position as much. And essentially, you can then start the journey of ascending and healing that shadow energy. Now, when we talk about things like intuition, for me personally, I really struggled with understanding. I would think I was listening to my intuition, and then it wouldn't be my intuition. So I was like, what part of my soul is talking to me and leading me astray? And essentially, it was my shadow. So that cartoon of where the little angel and the little shadow is on one side, the reason why I feel like it was depicted that way is because essentially, if you really tap in and listen, that's how it plays. So if the goal for me personally is to reclaim and have active my inner child, inner feminine, and inner masculine, and essentially ascend them out of this toxic energy. Because, guys, you can have your inner child in your lower vibrational shadow energy, or your inner child could actually be part more in union with and tethered to the higher self. For me personally, when I was talking about me having a toxic masculine energy, I had to ascend my own masculine energy from my own darkness. So as I ascend these parts of my soul to the higher self, essentially the goal is to ascend the whole being. So think of like the yin and the yang. Once we come in union, we're able to evolve our entire soul. And a lot of the times when I thought I was getting ahead or ascending, I actually wasn't, because there was a part I was moving forward. My higher self was moving forward, but there was a pivotal part of myself I was leaving behind. And it was the parts of myself that I didn't heal, that I hadn't claimed, that I denied in myself. So as I do shadow work, that's where these other parts of the soul really play a role. Like, I mean, a lot of my shadow work revealed inner child wounding and trauma that I didn't have the capacity to understand, acknowledge, and heal at the time. My dormant feminine energy, my toxic masculine. So, anyways, this is just a way of trying to visually get you to understand where I speak from the shadow aspect from. And essentially, I believe that once we come into union with the higher, the lower, and the three parts, these other three parts of the soul, this entire emblem, our entire soul is able to completely evolve. And that's my goal. So, yeah, that's a little bit of my interpretation on the shadow.
Jazz, what you want, girl?
I'm unprepared, you guys. If I'm all over the place, just bear with us because I think we all kind of just channeling. Me personally, my shadow aspects have been very tied into my survival. I identify closely with my shadow in the many ways that it's chosen to protect me throughout my life. So a lot of you guys, I will probably be very unrecognizable, the old version of myself to my new soul family, because if you ever really wonder why people rob, steal, and kill, it's because they need to. 9 times out of 10, they don't want to, but they actually need to. And I remember being one of those younger kids who wasn't silver spoon fed, but still wanted all the shit that everybody else wanted. I used to steal. I used to rob. Y'all probably like, no way, Jazz. The fuck? No, that was my lowest version of myself. But in those moments, I did certain things out of survival. I made a lot of decisions and choices because I felt like I needed to or I had to. And depending upon where you grew up or where you were raised, sometimes you have to be on your toes. You got to be on your P's and Q's. Sometimes you got to constantly be observant and looking over your shoulder. And we can't give that credit to the higher self, you guys. That is truly the part of our intuition that is associated with our shadow aspects. That part that tells you when danger is near, that part that tells you to call somebody out on their bullshit, that part that identifies with other people's demons and lower vibrations is ultimately being triggered by that part of you that resonates with that part of them. So sometimes I feel like we don't give the shadow credit for what it's here to do. And it's truly just here to protect us on this spiritual journey. We are in this world, but not of it. And sometimes, like Des said in the higher self video, your higher self will find the good in everybody, you guys. It doesn't matter how fucked up that person is, how low vibrational that individual may be. Our higher self has the capacity to look at somebody and say, I still see the God in you. I still see the greatness in you. But that can be to our detriment sometimes. So our discernment, our protection, sometimes our survival kicks in. We tap into it through our shadow aspects. I feel like the biggest thing that we can do ourselves as a disservice is to identify darkness outside of ourselves. And the best thing we can do for our spiritual journeys is to identify with it within ourselves. I always say that there is no darkness outside of you that can beat you up as bad as the one that you had within yourself. So those shadows, those demons that actually are assigned to you for your assignment have the ability to fuck your life over than any devil or any demon or anything outside of yourself. So when we talk about shadow work, it's a tricky process. It's not as easy as people try to make it seem, because the amount of accountability that you have to take, the amount of responsibility that you have to acknowledge over your ways, over your actions, over your choices, over your decisions, it takes a big person. You know what I'm saying? So as a divine feminine, you're going to have to really shift through your panty drawer and find your grown woman ones and really sit there with yourself and ask yourself why certain things keep playing out, why you keep showing up a certain way in your own particular life. I feel like the only time the shadow wreaks havoc in our lives is when we try to make it seem like it's not a part of us. So now, just like a child, and I love that Des said that your inner child can be attached to your higher self or your shadow. Because most of the time, when our demons decide to rear its ugly head, it's in the form of temper tantrums. It's in the form of outbursts. It's in the form of an overwhelming abundance of pent up energies. And then we wondering why we showing our ass and we're acting out. But it's because of the lack thereof attention, or the lack thereof compassion, or the lack thereof love, that we show our own shadow aspects. So I feel like the world is constantly triggering us to actually do this shadow work. Every time somebody says or does something that makes you feel some type of way, those triggers are your opportunities to grow. And I feel like the shadow sometimes just wants to be seen, you guys. That's it. The shadow just wants to be seen. It wants to be heard. It wants to be felt. It no longer wants to be suppressed and acting as if it's not a part of this journey when it actually plays a huge part of this journey. The spirit has no armor without the shadow. So mama also wanted me to tap into my personal belief about the love vibration. I believe that love is the highest frequency available to man because it is one of the frequencies that's mostly associated with the most high. And the reason why I feel that way is because love is not a light frequency. And unconditional love will show you that. I'm not a mother, but Mama D can attest to this. It doesn't matter what Kia does. It doesn't matter what she do out here. That's still your baby, and you won't forever love that little girl. And I feel like my mom will probably do the same thing. I will come to her with a murder weapon, and she's still gonna bury that shit and hide it until we get caught. That's unconditional love, y'all. It's a lot of things that we do in our personal lives that are not in coherence with our spiritual journeys, and that don't make God love us no less. So I don't believe that love is this light frequency that everybody would probably want it to be, or that we probably been told that it is, because in regards to creation, we've been wiped out a couple of times, and that don't make God love us no less. When it was time for the floods, when it was time for the meteor showers, when it was time for, in Revelations, if we're supposed to die by fire, like God really loves us, but it doesn't take away from the fact that love is just not a light frequency. Sometimes we have to show tough love. Sometimes when you're talking to people that you love and that message that comes up out of you, it got a little sting or a little bite to it, but that don't mean you love them no less. There are just different ways to show that powerful, most high vibration of love. And I feel like the reason why we're all on these spiritual journeys is to truly utilize unconditional love to bridge these gaps between light and between darkness. And I feel like when you're tapped into unconditional love, you're tapped into that God frequency. And there's nothing you can't do when you're operating in unconditional love. So in order to operate in unconditional love, we have to not just love people with conditions, you guys. We have to love people through their growth, through their shadow, through their demons, through their darkness. That's unconditional love. That's that maternal love. That's that God-like love. And I feel like the more that we view love as conditional, the more that we view the shadow outside of ourselves. So now you got to come to me perfectly, or else I can't love you at all. And then it shows it reflects how we love on ourselves. We got to show up perfectly, or we don't love ourselves at all, you know? So compassion is key in regards to understanding unconditional love for self and then unconditional love for other people. That's not just their angel, y'all. That's their demons too. That's their flaws and all.
So I just wanted to make one point just about the shadow and its role to essentially protect us. I feel like a lot of people, when you talk to them about their shadow, they refer to the shadow as something that has had to protect them at certain times and things like that. And I get that, collective. You know, my shadow has done its fair share to keep me alive, but I also feel like it was because of my lack of faith in my higher self and my higher self's approach to protecting me. So there's different ways, and a lot of the time the shadow will use very low vibrational ways of getting the same thing accomplished. Your lower vibrational self can have a way of getting success, protection, whatever you want, but then your higher self will have a way of doing that. The point is to get them on the same page so that both the higher self and the lower vibrational self support the soul, protecting it, reaching achievements, all these things. Because from what I understood, from my own shadow work was part of my shadow's resentment was being responsible for protecting me. And my higher self has always tried to protect my shadow because it has a higher vibrational way of going about it. And my shadow is the most vulnerable part of my soul. My shadow is the part of my soul that harbors all the pain, has all the memories that I try to suppress, has the scars. So for it to have to now go out and protect my soul it doesn't seem balanced. It didn't seem balanced to me when I was doing my shadow work. It made me realize like this is part of why I'm resentful, you know? And it also made me look at the ways of how I go about protecting myself. I go straight to violence. I go straight to bad-minded. I go straight to that. If I have to defend myself, where my higher self is teaching me there's other ways we can go about protecting you. So I learned to become less defensive. I learned to communicate better. I learned to assume positive intent. I learned to do these kind of things, identify the truth in me, which allows me to be able to use discernment and identify the truth externally to me, who to trust, who not to. So guys, I know your shadow has done a lot of work to protect you. It's gang, I get it, but it's not your shadow's responsibility. Your higher self protects you and has always protected you, whether we give that credit to any other part of our soul. This is kind of what I was saying in the higher self videos, really acknowledging what your higher self has done and continues to do for you. Because many of us burden our shadow with having to protect us, but your shadow's afraid. Your shadow's scared. Your shadow's wounded. So who protects the shadow? Who really protects the shadow? It's the higher self. So yeah.
So I wanted to ask a general question to all of us, in terms of trying to bring light and compassion to our shadows, and actually seeing that the shadow is an intrinsic part of our healing. You know, because the shadow, for me, I feel like my shadow is the queen of sabotage. So in repeating these sabotaging behaviors, I've learned, just like you, Destiny, to, you know, speak in a more compassionate way, think before I speak, you know, not jump to conclusions, not not, you know, go for violence straight away, because I'll pull up on you, you know. And it's not like the kind of because even like you say, the shadow is scared, because even when I pull up on you, I'm scared, you know. But you I feel like you disrespected me, so I'm gonna pull up on you, and I'm scared, but I'm still gonna do what I'm gonna do. So what I've had to learn during my own shadow work is, why are we scared? Getting to the root of the fear. And I also wanted to add as well, like the inner child does get a lot of the association with the shadow, but I feel like it's like Destiny said, that it's all of the aspects. So I feel like, for instance, the shadow can I'll give you a scenario of the shadow. The shadow will tell you to eat things that are not healthy for your body. And then the reason why you're eating these things that are not healthy for your body is because you have some emotional turmoil inside that the shadow doesn't want to deal with. Rather than the shadow dealing with it, the shadow will eat its way through. And then before you know it, you've got a dis-ease because of the actions of the shadow. But then once you've got this dis-ease, now you are forced to really look at what is going on with me. What is and I don't think shadow work can be, I don't think shadow work is something that's a short journey. I feel, because I'm explaining the shadow work that I've had to do this year. You know, I went through a very healthy spout last year, and then this year, because of the emotional turmoil that this 5 year has brought, I was eating, was doing things that my shadow knew to comfort me. But then I got very sick. So then I had to ask myself, what is my shadow trying to teach me? What is my shadow trying to bring to the forefront? And I believe even in and who came to the forefront, not my higher self, but my feminine self, my divine feminine had to come to the rescue. My divine feminine had to put us on a raw diet. My divine feminine had to put us in salt baths every day. My divine feminine had to make sure that we were meditating and going out into nature every day. And I think it's the same thing when we find ourselves broke. You know, why are we broke? How did we become broke? because we've made the divine masculine energy within us dormant. You know, that energy is not doing its work. That energy is not keeping things moving and keeping things coming in. So I think that the shadow, like Destiny said in the beginning, plays a part with all of the aspects of ourselves, but it's also got something to teach us. It is continuously trying to teach us. I think it works in tandem with the higher self. It can even go as far as to say that it's the polarities. You know, it's, you know, the higher self and the lower self are one in the same thing, but it's just degrees, you know.
And what's the universal law, Mama, of polarities? Opposites are identical in nature and different in degree.
Speak the ting, the man. Speak the ting, the man. So I feel like when it comes to doing the shadow work, let's not approach it with dread. Let's not approach it with a heavy heart or some type of slacking. In fact, let's run towards that, because really and truly, I feel like the shadow teaches us the biggest lessons in order for us to achieve a level of peace and healing within our journey.
Yeah. I also wanted to add as well, the bigger the light, the bigger the dark. So I think that what makes a lot of people afraid, fearful, or stray away from the shadow aspects is when they see just how light they are, just how spiritual, just how graceful, just how righteous you are. It is sometimes almost hard to fathom when you see your shadow come out. But I'm here to let you know that was one of my biggest milestones in my spiritual journey, was acknowledging that what I love about African spiritual traditions, one is not better than the other, and both need to be mastered before you leave this plane of existence. And in order to do that, you have to go through the shadow work. And if you feel that righteous energy, if you feel that connection to divinity, then you have to understand that you have something just as big to match that polar opposite, like Beth said. And it is scary sometimes. It is, because it is completely opposite to the nature of thyself that you are accustomed to. So I see why some people stray away from it. I see why some people negate it. I see why some people may be fearful of darkness, because it is not something that any of our holy texts have ever taught us to gravitate towards, believe it or not. And the more separated from it that we become, I really want y'all to look down, or wherever you may be, if you have the ability to. Your shadow is right here. It follows you, it trails you. You can't run away from it. You can't run away from your shadow. You look crazy trying to do it. Your shadow is literally right here. It's and you can't get away from it. But all our lives, we try to shun these characteristics, these personality traits, and these aspects.
I'm just on a Zoom meeting
And
call
it
right
just
now.
wants to be seen. So when I started my spiritual journey, I used to want to say that was something that I'm no longer.
So much.
That was something that I'm not anymore. That was something that's bad. But in reality, that survival mode that kicked in for me to get to where I am today was a part of my process. It was part of my journey. It was a part of my understanding all of this shit. So it was really hard for me to become the spiritual person that you guys see while trying to negate the shadowy aspects that I used to possess. What made me integrate was feeling that sense of being whole and needing everything in order to become who I needed to become. You know, so I understand greatly how hard shadow work may be, but can we all emphasize the necessity of acknowledging that everything that you may be afraid of is within you and not outside of you? And I love Destiny's analogy of coming before God and leaving something behind. You know, time is of the essence, you guys. I personally live my life according to light years. I try to break the barriers of time for the remainder of time I'm living on this earth. But the fact of the matter is, you really want to come back here all over again when you could have figured it out while you was here. And I don't want to be one of them people that leave my shadow or don't acknowledge my shadow. And then it's literally right here. You can't run away from it. It's attached to you. Anytime you stand in the light, your shadow reveals itself, meaning it can't go nowhere. It's a part of this process, and it's a part of this journey that helps you begin to integrate it fully now. When you realize that it is actually an attachment, it's an assignment, and it's a part of the person that you're trying to ultimately become. So I feel like the worst thing we could have done as a collective was create a devil or a Satan. And, you know, that just gave us an excuse or a victim or an scapegoat per se. And when you really, really begin the process of integration, I feel like that is where your full power begins to expose itself to you.
And I feel like part of this journey has been to gain interdependence. So, you know, we talk heavily about the masculine and the feminine integrating, but also having to gain its own independence. And I believe that shadow also has to do the same. So rather than seeing the shadow as like a hindrance or something that could mess things up, also always give your shadow a voice. Always let your shadow be heard. You don't necessarily have to act with what the shadow is telling you to do, but at least give it a voice and at least acknowledge that. Sometimes, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not really good on just walking on the streets. And the slightest little thing can just be like, ready to fight. You know, just one little thing, and I'm ready to cut in these streets. But even at my age, it will never leave me. But I have to talk to my shadow and be like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Let's not do that. I know it would make you feel kind of all right. It's not worth it. You know, so you create a dialogue with your shadow in certain instances. Sometimes the shadow to step to the forefront in some situations, but not in all situations. So this is why you need to create a dialogue to make sure that it's who's running the show, who's moving forward in the particular action that you're taking or the particular situation that you're in, who's running things. Because I know, because my shadow is always quite scared, I know that in every single situation, especially when it comes to relationships, whether it be romantic or even as a mother, as a daughter, my shadow, as soon as it gets one little whiff of something trying to take piss, my shadow wants to be, or when it's being held accountable, my shadow wants to protect itself. Times when I'm just like, girl, just let it go. Let it go. And therein lies the teaching. And a new part of yourself is developed every time you allow the shadow to be heard, but not necessarily act. You're teaching the shadow a new thing, a new behavior, a new way of being. And the more that you do that, obviously it becomes a habit and it becomes part of your shadow. Your shadow then becomes a version of yourself that can actually negotiate. Your shadow can actually become a version of yourself that can actually take criticism without losing their shit. So I think opening up a dialogue with your shadow at all times, in all scenarios, is very important in the integration of the shadow into our higher, was it the five? Yeah, the five all coming together and living in harmony, because they're almost like the chakras. The chakras don't vibrate at the same frequencies, but yet they all need tuning and they all need to be tuned well enough to work together. That's no different to the five aspects itself.
And just one thing I wanted to say just about, you know, because I personally, when I first became aware of my shadow, I realized that like I had multiple demons, these what we hear inner demons. And I realized that because I wasn't acknowledging my shadow went and gained its own friends, made decisions to bring things, addictions, toxic people into my life to give it the company that it needed because the rest of my soul ignored it. So I believe that when you hear about inner demons, you and everyone needs to learn how to exercise the demons out of themselves. But just know your shadow will never be exercised out of you. It's not to be removed, because many of you guys are going to go through divine feminine season and become triggered in becoming aware of your shadow. Something's going to occur You're going to go through a tower moment, and what that tower moment is going to unlock is your shadow to you. And I'll be honest, when I first saw my shadow, like, that's when I make jokes. Like, I was literally running around the projects asking for an exorcism. Like, I wanted to know how to get it out of me. And then I learned that it's not supposed to be something that I take out of me. It's something I'm supposed to acknowledge, take accountability for, reclaim. So I'm telling you, collective, if you guys don't allow the rest of your soul to not just acknowledge your shadow, but give it the company it needs. So no abandoning, rejecting. If you don't do that, your shadow will go and gain its own company. So a lot of your addictions, a lot of these toxic people, your higher self, your feminine, your masculine, your shadow pick them and use these different parts of your souls, the feminine, masculine, or inner child, in order to bring these people into your life. Just like your higher self is going to work through your inner feminine, masculine, and inner child to manifest things for you into your reality, into Malkut, but your shadow will do the same. If it's not healed, if it's not tamed. So if I've learned anything, it's to listen to them both. They both have a perspective. It's like when you hear that saying, their truth and their truth together make the whole truth. It's like that. Your shadow and your higher self together give you a very realistic picture of whatever it is, for light, for dark, for high, for low, whatever it is you're looking at. So you can make really conscious decisions. You don't have to always backpedal to reclaim the higher perspective or even the lower one. A lot of the time when we reject our shadow, we end up falling into darkness. And because our shadow will identify to us darkness, no different than the higher self will always find the light. It doesn't matter how pitch black of a scenario, environment you're in, your higher self will never lose faith, will never give up, and will never lose optimism. That's finding light in the darkest of places. But there is the reverse of that. But anyways, sorry guys, I'm a little distracted today.
Jazz, do you have anything to add?
I feel like when we talk about shadow work, I feel like a lot of spiritualists oversimplify it. And I wanted to personally share some things that helped me shadow work, because people know, like, oh, okay, I got to work on my shadow, but it's kind of like, where do I start, you guys? What do I do? How do I begin? Shadow boxing was so pivotal in my shadow working process. And I'm really talking about fighting your shadow, creating a duel. And it's not about who wins. It's just about showing the strength that shadow work genuinely has within trying to integrate the soul fully. And I also want to talk about the mirror magic aspect of speaking to your soul directly through the eyes, and having those conversations with the shadow that make it feel less rejected, less neglected, and more seen. I'm going to pass this on because I got a little visitor, you guys.
All right, I just wanted to address this speak of ancestral. This is the shadow that you speak about ancestral instinct. I've actually got this in my notes. It's at the end of my notes, but we can talk about it now in terms of where is the shadow constructed. We know how the shadow is constructed in your particular lifetime with traumas and such and such. But a question that came to me yesterday in my scribbles was, where is the shadow constructed? And what I got then was the shadow of past lives. So me particularly, a lot of my shadow work has done past life work. So I can remember about seven of my past lives. And in those past lives, the two things that it had in common was abandonment and abuse, except one. Now, the one life that didn't have that is the incarnation that I'm in right now, and that ran directly from my bloodline. So who I've incarnated in from my past, from whoever that is in my bloodline, they didn't have to deal with those issues. Their issues were everything to do with being able to nurture, being able to, like Jazz was saying, love unconditionally, being able to not sabotage everything. So this is literally my life's journey in this incarnation, but it's very common for a lot of our shadows who have been constructed in past lives. So, you know, uh, some of you may ask, like, how do you even know? Again, things like ayahuasca will help you to tap into that, because I know that my experience with ayahuasca was able to actually give me an actual image of what my shadow looks like. There was a girl sitting next to me while we were taking the medicine, and she said for the entire night, because we spent the night in some hall taking this medicine, and she said for the entire night there was this, I'm going to tell you, there was this blue woman who had all these skulls attached to her, and I kept trying to touch her. That's all she was dealing with for the whole night. And I also punched the shaman that led the ceremony in her face. Well, because my shadow was wild. And then
Goes straight to violence. The shadow goes straight to violence.
and then what happened was ayahuasca, once it's in your system, it can take years to leave it, if at all. So maybe 6 months later, I used to have a chihuahua, and the chihuahua was on the stairs, and I was running a bath. I was going to go busking with some of my friends for the New Year's, and my dog wouldn't stop barking. And I've had that dog maybe at that time, maybe about 10 years already, and he wouldn't stop barking at me. And my first thought was to break his neck. No, I'm serious. So that's when I knew it wasn't right. That's when I knew something wasn't right. You guys can't be laughing at my shadow like this. Yeah?
It's my shadow laughing. It's totally my shadow laughing.
I'm identifying with it.
So my shadow was very, that's what the dog was barking at. It could see it. And I literally had to get into that bath that was running and battle it out with this energy. Like, first of all, telling it to stop scaring everyone. And then I think by the end of that bath, I had to allow that energy, this shadow energy, to integrate with my inner child. That was the first time they'd ever sat with each other, because before, my inner child was terrified of what it is that girl described. And, you know, I live with this image. I'm like, is that my image? Like, is that how my shadow is going? But my like we've been saying, like, my soul is ancient, as is many of us in this chat. This is an ancient soul. So a lot of your shadow work could be from past lives. So if you can't figure it out, for instance, if you've had a life where pretty much things were pretty normal, pretty okay, not too much trauma, but yet you still have a very dominant shadow that is sabotaging a lot of your life, this could be to do with past life events. And it's definitely something to go and check and look into, y'all.
I needed that one right there, because in regards to violence, does anybody resonate with blacking out when they fight? Like, people got to tell you what happened after the fact.
I remember every blow.
You do? Wow. I have to watch footage.
I will consciously beat your ass, like fully consciously aware.
So I'm the only bitch that's not consciously aware of what she's doing. I think it's because I fear my shadow. To this day, my shadow has shown me some things during, like, fights per se, where I begin to fight to kill. It's like, no, bitch, I want you to bleed, and I don't want to stop until I see blood type shit. Like, it scared the fuck out of me all my life, that I think that I don't even want to see myself when I'm operating in my shadow. That's how scary it can be for me sometimes. I think it took me that long to start my shadow work because of what I've seen my shadow do.
I personally think you black out because you disassociate yourself with that part of you. If you don't disassociate yourself, you'll be completely consciously aware of what your shadow's doing at that time.
Probably.
And again, Jazz, this could be something. Imagine you was a great warrior in a
That's
past.
why I said that resonated so much right now, Mama, because I feel like if it's past life related and I got 1804 ancestors, I think I don't want to fight no more. It's like I don't want to be violent no more. I did that when I had to do it, and I just want to be peaceful now. So, like that said, I disassociate myself with it because ultimately I'm tired. I'm tired of it. I don't
But
want to do
that,
it.
ironically though, Jazz, that's what I was saying. You died, and then you went to heaven. It was like, God, I'm good. God's like, where the fuck's your shadow? Where's your little nigga? And you're like, I don't know.
Right.
That little thing got me killed. And you're like, I left it down there.
Fuck that bitch. We don't need her. I can't. But that resonated deeply. Some of you guys may resonate with the fact that your shadow has some working to do from multiple lifetimes. And that's why it may feel like that integration process is a process. But don't stop. Don't stop.
And with the past life stuff that Mama D was talking about, there's always signs from the people you bring into your life to what you're drawn to. There's signs. I mean, you can even go through similar things. Like if you were a warrior in another life on a battlefield, you might be a warrior in a different capacity in this lifetime, but essentially the karmic cycle is going to bring you back into this energy so that you can learn whatever the life lessons are associated with that. Because I struggled with like past life connecting to it. And then like I realized all the signs were there of what my past lives have looked like in this lifetime. Maybe they present in avant-garde ways or different ways, but I can understand what the common thread was. I can tell by my parents, maybe the kind of parent I was. I can tell by, certain decisions I made in life, why I would have made those decisions intuitively because of my past lives. But yeah, doing the past life healing it's no different than your Akashic records. Your higher self can tap into all of this ancient knowledge from all of the years, all of the lifetimes you've reincarnated. Your shadow can tap into all of the wounding, not just from your previous lifetimes, but that connect to your soul family as well. It's the Akashic records, but like everything, there's a lower vibrational aspect and then there's a higher vibrational aspect. So your Akashic records have all the wounding, the trauma and pain, but they also have all of the gifts, talents, abilities, greatness, the good old Akashic records.
So do any of you guys have any of you guys in the chat have any questions that you might want to ask? And we're just going to see if we can get through some of these questions. And also I want to apologize for the sound, guys, from my end, because I know you guys are experiencing some echoing.
Mom, can you pin Lizzie Darko's comment? I think people still beef with me from past lives. The beefs and the conflicts that you have with people from past lives absolutely carry on. For some of you, you've beefed people's bloodlines for lifetimes. Like, you guys have never been cool. You guys have always gotten to the same point. For some of you, you've had kids. Like guys, though that beef shit is a fact, and I've experienced that. I know this isn't our first rodeo. I know I've been beefing you for a good 4,000 or 5,000 years, motherfucker. It feels too deep. It's too
even my own daughter. I think I explained it in a child thing. Mm-hmm. In a past life, I actually murdered her, and she came back to let me know what's good.
You're fucked up for that. You were fucked up for that.
I'm going to let you know what's good. You get me? I think she's forgiven me now. I think because we speak about it openly because we know it's a real thing. Yeah. Remember it. So, but we cool. But it's true. There's some people, all of this, this ascension thing has been extremely difficult for me because I know that there are certain bloodlines that I can't even see myself ever. Fuck them. So, again, I'm still, like I said, all four of us, we're in this bitch together. Like, we're all here together with you, having to work through the layers, because this shit is layered. You know what I mean? And it's like an onion. You're just stripping off little tiny layers of this onion until we can get to our cores, until we can essentially get to who and what we really are, which is love.
Mom, can I ask permission to read my shadow? Somebody I just saw in the chat asked where to start with the shadow work, like where to begin. And like Jazz was saying, it can be very overwhelming.
I'm missing the bloody things. Like I can't fucking multitask like that.
I'm just gonna.
Yes, I haven't heard that in a while. Are you about to read the letter to your shadow, Desi?
No, Jazz, just the remember the ladder to the shadow I did a couple years ago?
Yeah, that's the one. Yep. I was about to say.
Yeah.
I that in a brick.
I haven't read it for years either, so
Into it.
I was in such a different place then. I don't know if I was vibing any higher, but I mean, I just was in a very different place. And guys, when I tell you need a Bible, this is what I'm talking about. Where you journal the documentation of my ascension journey. It's everything from chicken scratch to pictures to all kinds. Like I drew pictures of people. I don't know who these people are, yo. Who's this lady? I don't know who the fuck these people are.
You so well.
She looks like an Anunnaki. She looks like an Anunnaki, bruh. Who are you channeling, bruh?
Who is these people?
She looks like an Anunnaki. I believe Queen Nefertiti was Anunnaki too because of the size of her head, the deformity of her head. But go ahead, Desi. Go ahead.
Anyways, my shadow. Oh shit! Here it is. I'm cool to read it, Mom. I'm okay to read the whole thing.
No, we've got time.
Okay, so I wrote this September 2018. Letter to my shadow side. Dear shadow side, why do you hate me so? Is it that you feed off my pain in order to survive inside me? You attack me? Well, shadow side, I want to tell you I forgive you. I understand your pain. Furthermore, I love you. I turn to you and face you, acknowledged your presence and existence, and share with you my light. Please understand, my dear shadow side, I will no longer battle you, deny your truth, and abandon you. Please understand, dear shadow side, God never left you, even when no one believed you were alive, had power, purpose, or intelligence. The Lord showed your worth inside me and allowed you to be with me. You helped me find my light, dear shadow side. You helped me be better. I know you have a powerful bond with God as you do with the devil. Please know, dear shadow side, as you've been pulled and drawn to lies and deceit, so has the devil done to you. You hurt me in the same ways the angel of darkness has oppressed and abused you. The devil himself struggles from the same misconceptions of his creator and represents the part of us that's dark, lacks faith, and needs light in order to grow. The creator, our creator, never abandoned or disowned us. The devil tricked both of us to believe God was watching us drown when in reality was watching us learn how to swim. As we continue to learn together, dear shadow side, know that together we will find the truth. I won't leave you, nor will I neglect your purpose in me. My inner angel understands that with no darkness, there's no contrast to light. They need each other to exist in balance, kind of like the yin and the yang. I no longer want to be estranged from you. I know that it opens up an ancient wound that challenges every crevice of your darkness. You want to be seen as God created you, just as I want to be seen, and together we will swim our way back home to God, like God always designed us to. Through our journey together, we will gain a better understanding of our creator and our relationship with God. This will allow us to love the creator deeply and receive the creator's love and guidance in ways we couldn't imagine or couldn't achieve when we were apart. Together as one, we will encompass the universe and everything in it. Together, we will seek healing and understanding as we were always meant to. I will no longer keep my light from you. I will share it with you. That's why God gave you me. In return, I will accept your darkness, your pain, and the beauty and purpose of it. I'm sorry, dear shadow side, how it must have felt being neglected for so long. Every attack on me from you was rooted in your abandonment and neglect. the pain of not understanding why God created you only to abandon you. This misconception is that leaves us. The misconception is that the creator leaves us when in all actuality we would detach from the creator. In this detachment, we are forced to learn in new ways how to find our light and reconnect to our Lord Creator. This dance of life is the true romance of our souls. To have each other, dear shadow side, is to have God. Should we ever separate, just know that when I die and descend to hell on the third day, we will rise together. We will go home together, my beautiful shadow. And this time I promise.
Girl,
Thank you,
drop.
Mom.
Can you drop the mic? Drop it. Drop the mic. Drop the fucking mic.
So
Honor.
that was how I started my shadow journey. That's what I first did to acknowledge and to face my shadow head on. And I have been trying my hardest to maintain that promise in that letter since then. So I know I've been a mess. I don't know what's going on, guys. I'm just
We're healing.
sensitive.
We're healing. That's
and
what
I'm vulnerable, and I'm in my shadow essence. Like I'm my whole all the other parts of my soul has rallied around my shadow and is just in the darkness at this time.
I don't know how to.
Oh, your
Anyway.
super chat. How did Desi? We'll figure that out after this, Mama.
We'll have to figure it out next
We'll
time.
figure this out after this. I want
to I have no idea because technology. What? But Destiny, yeah, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
I don't remember how I started my shadow because the thing is, my shadow wasn't something that I discovered. I was just in it. I was just in it, and it was destroying everything. And I feel the part the part where I had to stop breaking everything was when my dad died. When my dad, the lead up to his death and the actual passing of his death led me to lay on my belly and ask for mercy and ask for. I surrendered. I think that if you guys want to know how to, in a very simple way to start the shadow work, just say that I surrender. You have to surrender. You have to allow the divine to come in and now help guide you with the habitual shadow energy that you've been displaying. You know, it's like breaking any habit. You know, it's one day at a time. Can't beat yourself up if you relapse or if you have a bad I mean, like I said, this thing is about integration. When my shadow comes out, I don't even bat an eyelid because I don't hurt no one anymore. I don't, most of all, I don't hurt myself. I just let her speak. She might call someone a bitch sometimes. She might judge somebody sometimes. It might. I had I put a scale here, like with the polarities of the shadow. The shadow can be just one petty, and at 100 a serial killer, and everything in between. This is all part of the shadow, but it's like, you know, I've never been at 100. I've never been a serial killer, but I know that, you know, I taper definitely at 1. I'm the most pettiest person I know, but before I move forward in the petty, I'm like, do we need to do that? Do we need to really do that? So again, just be easy on your shadow. Be easy on your shadow because your shadow's doing the best that it can, y'all. Your shadow's doing the very best that it can. And like both the beautiful queens have said here, you can't get rid of your shadow. Your shadow is part of you, so it's better you just integrate that and you accept. It's all about acceptance. You know, it's all about honoring every single aspect of yourself, you know, and sometimes it isn't about changing it. It is just about accepting it. And this is where the unconditional love comes, because once you can love yourself unconditionally, that all you can do then is reflect mirrors. So people will not run away when your shadow comes out. People will not break you down when your shadow comes up. If anything, they'll be compassionate to your shadow, and because they see their own shadow within that. Just mirrors. Just mirrors.
I wanted to offer perspective because sometimes I think it's hard to identify what to do with the shadow when we don't know like the purpose it plays. And like Des said, don't let it get to the point where it's protecting you so much that now it doesn't even like to do it. The shadow ultimately, like all movement is not good movement, you guys. Sometimes we will try our best to just do something, and sometimes what we're doing is not necessarily taking us to where we want to go. I feel like the purpose of darkness sometimes in correlation to light is stillness. Sometimes you have to be still before you make a move. Sometimes you have to process your thoughts, contemplate your process and your procedure, formulate your plan of action. All of that shit happens in triple darkness and stillness. And stillness is peaceful. And within that peace, when you sit in triple darkness, whether it be with your eyes closed through meditation, whether it be with your eyes closed, it's so peaceful. You can actually fall asleep for 8 hours. That's how peaceful darkness is, because nothing moves over there. So sometimes the shadow, it really is just struggling with the fast-paced movement that the soul's mission is geared or headed towards. And it just wants to catch up, or it needs to catch up. It needs to be brought up to speed. And I don't want people to frown upon darkness when ultimately you don't realize the part that it's playing. When you sit still, that's how you get your plan. And then your light is what takes your plan into action. So without the plan, there is no action though. So I don't want you guys to feel like the shadow plays no part. It plays a pivotal role in the spiritual journey. It allows you to really process and gather your thoughts, process and gather your intentions, process and gather your perspective before you decide to move. So that way, when you move with purpose, you move with power, you move with integrity, and you move with clarity. So light, white light specifically, because when you talk about the spectrum of light, you're talking about every color in the rainbow. White light specifically is so fast it cannot be measured. And that shows us that sometimes we can move around here making movements. That don't mean that it's moving us towards the direction that we need to go in. We need to embody stillness sometimes and embrace the darkness that provides us with the ability to sit still sometimes, to make sure that every time we decide to operate within our light body, that we're making effective movements towards our goals and things of that nature, or towards our life and things of that nature. So to give the shadow and to give darkness a more prominent role in the spiritual journey, that perspective alone will help you cultivate the compassion that's needed to integrate the shadow into the spiritual journey.
I remember darkness stands for knowledge, and everything grows in the dark. So there's absolutely nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to be afraid of. You have to be as comfortable in the dark as you are in the light. This is the balance. So if you can build a relationship with your shadow in a positive light, in a positive way, then you're winning at all times. Nobody can tell you about yourself. Nobody can really call you out because you know yourself. This is the whole thing of know thyself. It's knowing all of these compartments, and it's not shunning any of it. I think we're done here, guys. The shadow had us quite somber, you know. Yeah, it's had us quite somber. I guess it's not a laughing matter because um, none of us have laughed too much today. But me and Destiny got a headache, to be honest.
I'm not even trying to trigger my shadow laughing when it's like, bitch, it's not funny. I'm in fucking crisis. I'm in pain. Like,
I can't.
So you guys, we just want to thank you as always for joining us on our Free of Cups journey and this series of the 5 aspects of the self. And we're going to be back at Jazz's house next week. and we've only got 2 left. We've got the masculine and the feminine to do. So we'll see which one we come with, but I'm sure there'll be a lot more. It'll be a lot more animated. The shadow had us all like,
Yeah. Proper and
humbled us, innit?
serious.
Humbled all of us, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, guys, thank you so much. And yeah, join us at Hourglass by Jazz next week. And we're going to see you. Are you guys doing anything? I'm going to be doing a full moon reading tomorrow. You lot on anything?
I'm
I
jumping on.
might do one.
I'll jump on tonight. I just have a personal to knock out, and then I'll probably come through for the family between tonight and tomorrow. But if y'all bitches going live tomorrow, can y'all text the nigga so we not, same time in this shit? Can y'all let me know?
By the time you lot might be sleeping, I'm going to try an afternoon. I'm going to try and get in an early afternoon, so you lot will still be in your beds. So no clashing from this side. So yeah, everybody, thank you so much.
I love y'all.
Thank you. We love you so much. And my beautiful sisters, thank you for another lovely Friday evening. Because I'd be on my fucking own. I'll just be telling you, on a Friday evening, I'll just be jamming by myself. So, you guys, thank you for the company and the companionship and the knowledge and the learning and the healing. Thank you. We see you next week, guys.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.